Hello and welcome to another episode of Wellness with EAC. My name is Nicole Guanzura, and I'm so excited we get to talk once again. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. So glad to have you. We are showing up every week on Wednesdays, and we're talking about all things wellness. We talk about career wellness and our faith journeys and how that intersects and interact with our personal and professional journeys. Some days you're going to hear from me. It'll be a solo episode, something I'm hearing from y'all, something that's really right on my spirit and I want to just share with you. And other days I have guests on that are coming and sharing their stories because you don't want to hear from me all the time. We want to make sure that you're hearing from other folks. So today is one of those days, and y'all, I am so excited. I tell you, when you hear from this amazing, amazing woman, you are going to be so in awe of her story. I've had the privilege of seeing her evolve from student to professional and just expand in so many ways of life. And so I'm really excited for our guest today to talk to you about her story, tell you a little bit about what she does, and share some advice with you all as well. But I'm not going to do too much talking. I want her to share her story. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to our guest, Neidelyn Pina. Neidelyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole, and for that beautiful, lovely welcome. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I love our relationship and the fact that, we go way back when I was a student and now, we have a working relationship. We still keep in touch. So I'm so grateful to have met you through the Forte Foundation. And so, hi, everyone. My name is Neidelyn Pina. I am currently a senior associate at JP Morgan Chase, and I'll talk a little bit more about what I do and my role. I graduated from Rutgers University Newark campus in 2020 with a degree in accounting. And I'm really passionate about a lot of different things, but some of the key passions are financial literacy among Black and Brown communities. And in addition to that, first generation college students, because I was a first generation college student myself. And I think going to college has been so transformative for my life and for my family's life. So I am super passionate about helping other first gen students navigate this process that's completely new to them. And then also coming out on the other side of it, successful with a job, with something that they're excited about, and working on that. So that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to dig deeper into so many of those topics. And at the time we're recording this, it's such a timely conversation, Neidelyn, because we are in Financial Literacy Awareness Month. It's so important. And as you know, at EAC, one of our pillars is financial wellness and literacy. And it's important that we're having these conversations. If you are going to have a well-balanced career, you got to understand the money side, right? It's more than just the number you get on your paycheck, not even the number you get on your paycheck, the number you get on your offer letter. Don't go signing on an apartment or, negotiating based off of that without running some numbers through ADP or something else to understand what money looks like. But also, you mentioned the first generation piece. There's also some things tied to that, along with money and important conversations, sometimes difficult or tricky conversations that you've got to have around it. So I appreciate that you're coming at just the perfect time to have this conversation. So you mentioned you went to Rutgers. Tell us a little bit more about your education and work background. Really, what I want to understand is more than just your major, more than just your job title. What drove you to pursue that path?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I am the first in my family to go to college. So I grew up with my mom and my grandma, super close to them. And we grew up in a very diverse town in North Jersey where everyone around us was basically also immigrants from specifically Latin America is really the community that I was a part of. And I went to a high school that was so diverse. In fact, all of my educational experiences have been so unique because they've been so diverse. And it really wasn't until I got to the corporate world that I was shocked with the lack of diversity. But back in high school, I had a great environment and I had
Mm-hmm.
guidance counselors that really got to know students individually. It was such a tiny
Mm-hmm.
school and got to know kind of what we were interested in, our passions. And this one guidance counselor, and I still remember her. I need to reach out to her. Her name is Miss Amato, and she would always know that I was interested in business and I wanted to go somewhere, somehow in the business world. At the time,
Mm-hmm.
I actually wanted to get into fashion. It was an interest I had until I realized, well, do I really like the business of fashion or do I just like clothes and shopping? It's two different things. But she knew that I was interested in business. And when I was a junior, she told me about this program called the RBS Prep Program, where
Mm-hmm.
you get to go to Rutgers, Newark, you take a college class, you get to be a part of this community, and it was completely free. So she said, hey, Neidelyn, you should apply to this. And she maybe told others as well, but I don't know if others actually took her up on that opportunity. And honestly, something I've noticed about me throughout the years is when I have an opportunity, I'll go for it. And when I see something, I'll put in the work to apply, to do whatever it is I need to do to be a part of that because I always think, you never know where something can take you. Just say,
Mm-hmm.
figure it out afterwards. So I applied to the program, I got in, and that was my first experience with Rutgers University. And I didn't think at the time that I would actually go there for my 4 years. It wasn't until I was a senior, I was applying to schools all over the country, and I was so excited about going to college. And again, I had the support in my high school because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of us were also first generation, so they catered to that. A lot of us were low income students, so they catered to that. And so I was just applying, to a bunch of schools. And I remember as well, and tying in the financial literacy aspect, I randomly stumbled across this YouTube video of a YouTuber who had just recently graduated and had moved to New York. And she did a lot of fashion content, which is kind of why I
Mm-hmm.
watched her. And she said, having student loans has been like the worst decision that I have because now, I have this burden over me. And she was kind of just going into detail over student loans. She said if I could go back in time, I would not have taken out some of these student loans. And I never thought of that before. But at the same time, I was always aware of debt because my mom was
Mm-hmm.
always very uh, averse to debt. So she never
Mm-hmm.
had any credit card balances. She never had anything that she had to pay back. She was always pretty smart and savvy with her finances to the extent that she could be. So
Awesome.
I always knew I never grew up with, having to feel like we were burdened by debt. Like I know some other people have had that experience. And then that YouTube video of that YouTuber saying student loans were, her worst decision, I started thinking about the impact of wow, I'm about to make a decision that could potentially have an impact on the rest of my life. And that's really
Mm-hmm.
when I became hyper aware of the financial aspect of going to college, knowing I was not having any support from my family, knowing
Mm-hmm.
that, I was doing all of this on my own. And in that college application process, Rutgers ended up being the best financial decision. I got
Mm-hmm.
scholarships. It was a state school, so I basically went tuition free. In fact, got some money back over, scholarships and financial aid because I also didn't dorm on campus. So I had this experience that I had a connection with Rutgers already. I knew it was a great place to go study business. It was ended
Mm-hmm.
up becoming the best financial option out of all the different schools I was applying to. And I said, you know what? I'm going to just choose Rutgers. And that's another theme, I think, in my life. Like, because I'm first generation and because I grew up knowing that, I'm paving the way for myself. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
support from anyone that I can lean back on and say, well, I messed up, at least I have something with my family here waiting for me. I was always very, I guess, mature in the decisions that I made and always thought them through very detailed because
Mm-hmm.
I knew, it's all on me. So that's how I ended up choosing Rutgers. And
Okay.
Rutgers was the best experience of my life. And that's a kind of something that I think about a lot because I think, we all have an idea, and I had an idea of what your college experience should be. And you think of the typical American college experience is, going away to school and dorming and going to the football games. And maybe it is the experience for many people. And that's a beautiful
Mm,
experience. And maybe if I went to Rutgers, New Brunswick campus, I would have had that. But I also then started retraining myself into saying, well, your college experience is unique to you. Maybe one
mm-hmm.
experience is the most common throughout the country, but really it's whatever you make of it. So my
Yes.
experience was I was still living at home. It was a commuter campus, so almost all my friends were also commuting. Rutgers, Newark is a very special place because so many of us are also first generation, low income, a lot of people from the Newark community. So I was
Mm-hmm.
in this circle of other really ambitious students who didn't come from much, but we're all just making it on our own. And that experience to me was everything that I needed. So that was really what inspired me to make the most out of my college experience, to dream bigger than I ever did before because my
Mm,
classmates were doing it, because the staff and the faculty knew the students that they were catering to. Um,
right.
so I had an amazing college experience and I was so involved on campus. I think because I commuted, I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to make sure I was super involved. So I remember I would be on campus 7 a.m., 7 to 7 p.m., just classes, events. I was part of Rutgers undergraduate women in business because
Mm-hmm.
that's always a mission that I always really cared about growing up with my mom and my grandma. And that's how I got involved with Forte and met
Yep,
Nicole.
that's
But,
yep.
I was always on campus in events, doing something. And that experience, I miss it so much. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about other people. And it gave me more than anything, more than the degree, the education, it gave me a new community of people
Mm-hmm.
that were like-minded, that were going to do amazing things in the world. And really, those were my classmates. So um, that was my college experience, and I treasure it and love it so dearly. And then after college,
Yeah.
I started my career at Deloitte,
Mm-hmm.
interned for 2 summers, and I loved my internship experiences. But then getting to Deloitte full time, it was a complete different experience, and there were many
Mm-hmm.
factors that went into that, and I'll touch on some of them later on. But
Mm-hmm.
I graduated in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. That was my full time experience, my introduction to the corporate world, and so I
Mm-hmm.
did struggle a little bit in that role, and in that environment at Deloitte. And then after, through a series of decisions and actions that happened, I ended up where I am now, which is at JP Morgan Chase, doing something that I'm very much interested in. I love the
Mm-hmm.
work. I always say it's kind of like my dream role. And I think the power of thinking and being intentional in what you think you might want at some point and just having certain words that
Right.
trigger feeling, I think is
Mm-hmm.
important because I know in college, I never knew a role like this existed, but
Mm.
I think I want something that involves like finance, personal finance. I love the banking industry, something strategic, something that is allows me to think creatively and strategically. And really, that is my role today. And a lot of those
Mm.
key words that I always said, oh, I think I want something along these lines, really manifested into what my role is today. So I always say, I kind of manifested this role and thought about this role even before I knew it existed.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think there's so much power in our words, right? And just I talk about the faith side of things for me. I think there's just so much power. There's life and death in the tongue. And so you could complain and say, well, this sucks and I don't like this and I don't like that. And guess what? That is what you're bringing into the atmosphere. That's what you're, giving. But if you are speaking so much positivity and you're thinking about, okay, this is what I'm praying for, this is what I'm really hoping for, this is what I would love to see in my next environment, right? For me as a believer, I'm like, okay, God, then please make that happen for me, right? I'm going to put in the work. You do the rest, right? I'm going to do the natural. You meet it with your super. We make it supernatural. Um, that's how I look at a lot of things. And I love just thinking, seeing just like how you're talking about how this manifested into your life. And also, I like your transparency. I appreciate your transparency in the environment you came in, right? Because that's a reality of sometimes what happens in when you're still early in your career. And the internship experience is a really great way to find out, okay, do I like this? Will I like it? Do I want to explore it? And then that first role with the company either is going to make or break or it's going to be something that's going to allow you to learn from certain experience and that you can apply. You're like, okay, this is not it. And it doesn't help that was there was an entire global crisis happening and companies didn't know what to do with that. Either it worked really well and they're able to shift with you, or things are just like not set up, right? Maybe you don't have the right mentors set up to support you. You don't have a lot of things that are set up to help you be your best in that environment, right? So I appreciate your transparency around that. And I love that experience that you've had at Rutgers because it's still evident today. You literally light up and glow when you're talking about how awesome your college experience with it was and that impact. So I want to learn a little bit more. You've talked about your work experience, you've talked about the education. You're in this role that you love, right? This living your best career life, right? In this season, what else is going on? What are you really proud of in this season of life?
Yeah, I think definitely finding the role that
Mm,
I think has taught me so much and has opened my mind to so much is something I'm really proud of. But in addition to that, one big financial accomplishment that I'm really proud of is my mom and I, as I said, me, my mom, my grandma, three musketeers, always together. And my mom always said she wanted to buy a house when I graduated. And I always knew, that was something we were working towards. And she always
mhm.
planned for it and saved for it. But given that, she was a single mother, one income, she never was able to do it on her own, especially in North Jersey where everything is so expensive. So we
Yeah.
always planned that when I graduated, with my income and her savings and her income and all of it put together, we would buy a house together. And that's exactly what we did. So I'm so proud that, we actually did
Yay.
it and it was a shared success. And
Hmm.
that was when I was 23. So I'm
Wow.
25 and I am really grateful. And, it's something that it's a huge life decision and responsibility to have a house, especially.
Hmm.
And it's also something very unique, it's not the tip something that a lot of people, I can say, hey, like, what's your experience owning a house with your mom, So um, I I've realized that it's something that really is going to set up my family for when I move on and I
Hmm.
go and do different things and I no longer am able to financially support. I'm glad that, I made the decision now that we have
Hmm.
this. And I can always say, my mom and my grandma are okay. And that's something that was always so important to me, given that I am so close to them. I never saw myself just saying, okay, bye. I'm living my life because it goes back to this quote that I put on my graduation cap and I put it in
Hmm.
Spanish, but I think I can translate it pretty easily, which is when you guys see me fly, remember that you painted my wings. And that
Mm.
really is like how I feel about my mom and my grandma. So I'm so proud that we were able to accomplish that. And
Oh,
then
wow.
the other kind of personal um, accomplishment that I'm really proud of, and I don't think
Hmm.
as tangible as saying, I found a new job that I love or I bought a house. Those are very tangible accomplishments, but I think there's
Hmm.
something to be said over other small little life wins. And I think
Yes.
in this season of my life, it is choosing myself more and
Mm.
know who I am. And ever since I turned 25, I feel like I'm a new person. And everyone would always say that. And me at 23 and at 25, totally different people. So I'm so excited to continue to see how I change over time. But at
Hmm.
this age and in this season of my life, I'm very focused on choosing myself in every aspect and
Hmm.
proud of that because I don't think it's something I could have said 2 years ago, 5 years ago. And so I'm excited to continue to cultivate this energy and to learn even more about myself and choose myself as I get older.
Oh, I love that. I love that. First of all, congratulations on that purchase, that home purchase. That is a big deal, right? And to do that at 23 years old is, you're 23, you are the first in your family to go to college, you're graduating, you've got a good income coming in, you know the hearts and desires of your mom and your grandma, and you also have this beautiful heart posture where you can also do this with such a giving heart, right? And be able to live in this multi generational home, which is not done anymore. It's not done anymore in so many cultures. I come from an African background and culture, and that was similar in like days gone by, days way past, but that's not really the same. It's just kind of like every person from themselves a lot of the times. You come together and then you go do your own thing. But so rarely do you find a place where you can feel that comfort, right? Of mom, I see what you've done. I see where you've gotten me. Grandma, I see what you've been doing. And I want to honor you by coming into this, you know, legally binding contract to buy a home. But also, it's an honorable thing to do. And I applaud you for that. And the fact that you're like, walking away, if you decide to walk away in a few years, you know that they're okay. And honestly, probably at the time you got that compared to buying a house right now with interest rates going a little wild, all of that. I mean, the timing is just so divine. And I'm so proud of you for doing that. And then also now taking the time to put yourself first and take care of yourself and really just value your time. Do you have a tip or two to share with our audience on how you are taking that time or how you made that decision to just really, hey, I'm going to take care of Neidelyn. I'm going to take care of number one here.
I think it depends on what you define as choosing yourself because I
Mm,
for me, given that I always felt like it was such a responsibility to be a good daughter and granddaughter,
mm-hmm.
that can take a lot from me. So realizing the areas that, I don't feel completely full when I'm doing all these things. So I'm going to start saying no more to certain things. So for
Yes.
me, it's setting certain boundaries and making sure that, and one tangible example for that is I've realized I do need a weekend to myself to truly, I don't want to hang out with anybody. I don't want to, do anything social. I truly just want, and for me, a perfect weekend doing that to restore myself is I just want to go on a walk. I want to create and like cook a new recipe that I'm really excited about. And then I want
Mm-hmm.
to have some tea and read or watch a show. And I don't want to have responsibilities for that.
Mm.
No, it's that is a privileged thing to say, you know what, this weekend I don't want to have any responsibilities, but
Yeah.
it's something that I needed and I need to carve that out more. And so choosing myself
Mm.
is if there is a social event that week or something that I'm invited to, or someone wants to do something, the answer is no. I need to
Yeah.
prioritize this for myself. This is what I had planned, and I need this for myself. So I think it's thinking about what it is that you need for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
making sure you prioritize that over all else.
That is, oh, that's advice for any and everybody who needs that. And you're right. Sometimes it can be a privilege, but it's important to do it and set aside that time. Otherwise, you're just really walking fast to burn yourself out. And I appreciate you sharing that insight. And I think about now, as you've kind of gone through life to date, right? You've still got a lot to look forward to. At 25, there's a lot of life left to be lived here. But, there's something about that quarter century that's just like renewed sense of hope, renewed sense of life. I remember you telling me that you were getting ready to celebrate and just enjoy that time and season. Um, So let's talk about then on the flip side, can you maybe quickly share one example of um, how you've overcome adversity in your life so far?
Yeah, I think the best example to illustrate this is a career example. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as I think that was a big moment where I had to overcome adversity and kind of put all the tools that I've learned to date and
Mm-hmm.
navigate a difficult situation. And that goes back to my first role at Deloitte. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, like any situation in life, something is never all good or all bad. There's always
Yeah.
good and bad out of everything. So I can't say that my entire Deloitte experience was all bad because first of all, I learned so much on the actual business side. And then also I was involved with amazing D&I groups that I met people from all over the firm that I'm still in
Mm-hmm.
touch with today. It built that leadership experience in me in a corporate setting. And I have
Yeah.
some of the best memories being a part of those groups when I was at Deloitte. But on the flip
Mm-hmm.
side, the actual work was really challenging for me to navigate because, as I mentioned, I came in during the pandemic. And so
Mm-hmm.
given that Deloitte is a professional services organization, we are doing what the clients are doing. So at the time, clients were dealing with all the pandemic PPP madness. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what Deloitte was doing as well. So my first project, I came in and I don't want to get so into detail over the work, but essentially it was work that I no one wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was nothing that I had done in my internships. And so
Mm-hmm.
I understand there's something to be said about sometimes you need to do the grunt work and you need to just do it. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy and willing to do that at first, but I was told it was a limited time that I was going to be doing that. And over time,
Mm-hmm.
I saw people around me get pulled out, go on and actually do something that's going to teach them that they can put on their resume, that they can talk about, and experience that they can leverage on, right? And I started
Yeah.
doing that among my internship classmates. So all of
Mm-hmm.
us, we joined at the same time. Yeah, some of us were pulled into this, what I'm describing as this kind of work that no one really wanted to do. We were all pulled in, but over time, slowly everyone started to get pulled away and move on to
Mm-hmm.
assignments that they were taking a lot from. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was not. And I continued on. And what was something that was supposed to be a 3-week project ended up being 6 months of my
Mm-hmm.
time at Deloitte, where I felt like the skills that I was getting in that specific role, I feel like I had those skills already because
Mm-hmm.
it was nothing new and it wasn't anything that I really was excited and looking forward to getting out of my Deloitte experience. And so
Right.
in and of itself taught me how to advocate for myself, how to communicate what it is that I want, and how to navigate a difficult situation in the workplace, skills
Mm-hmm.
taken with me and have, just expounded upon in my current.
Yeah.
And not only that, once I was in that situation, I always said, I don't want this to impact my promotion,
Mm-hmm.
impact my development. And
Mm-hmm.
always told by people, no, it won't, it won't, it won't. And in fact, it did. It did impact
Mm.
things. So when I was in the situation, I was relying on certain people. And then on the flip side, when I came out of it, I realized, well, I shouldn't have been relying on certain people and I should have been
Mm.
thinking for myself even more because it did end up impacting me. So that was a really difficult situation to see, and especially, the group element of it, to have all
Right.
my other friends, really friends to this day, all of
Mm-hmm.
them doing things that I thought I would be doing, and for some reason I was held back and there was nothing I
Mm.
could do about it. I tried and I navigated certain things, but ultimately it just wasn't working out. So although I had people advocating for me extensively at Deloitte, and I had great mentors, great sponsors, and people who were really willing to help. There's
Mm-hmm.
certain bureaucracy or certain like red tape that really, like, in a big company, maybe not anybody can just get around no matter.
Right.
So I was kind of faced with this dilemma of, well, I've built this social capital at Deloitte and I have
Mm-hmm.
who are aware I had a really bad experience and I was just unlucky, and they're willing to
Mm,
help me and they're willing to help me make the best out of my second year there and my third year and all of that.
right.
Or do I leave and give up that social capital and start over? And that was really scary for me. Again,
Mm,
first generation. I don't like taking risks. I like to be secure, and that's really why I majored in accounting and started my career at Deloitte. But
right.
in that scenario, I said, I think I'm going to take the risk. And it was still
Mm,
a safe risk because I didn't say I'm going to, leave the workforce altogether and go, do something super risky. Like I was moving to another job, but
right.
I was basically starting over. And
Yeah.
that's, well, if I did it at Deloitte, I could do it somewhere else too. I
Oh,
am
yeah.
I am taking myself there and I'm still going to be the same person that I am, and I'm still going to get involved. I'm still going to meet people. I'm still going to prioritize making connections and having that group of people who are there for me. And that's exactly what happened. So
Mm,
I learned so much from that experience, so many skills, and
mm-hmm.
learned a lot about how I want to navigate my career and just being cautious of the risks that I take and taking calculated risks, and also knowing that, sometimes you do need to go through a really bad experience to get out on the other side. Because if I had
Right.
an experience at Deloitte and I was just one of the lucky ones that came out
Mm,
in a huge organization like that, there is some luck involved. And if I had a great experience, maybe I would have never wanted to find another job and
yeah.
find this job, which truly is something that I think has taught me so much and has given me so much. So
Mm.
I think on the flip side of things, things will always work out.
They do. And I think you bring up something that's really important as you're talking about this experience, which I appreciate you really sharing and delving into that, because there's the reality of sometimes, even with the mentors, even with the sponsors, even with you speaking up, even with you followed the rules, right? You followed every single rule and advice that they tell you you should to get up that ladder. You should. But sometimes that just means that, hey, as my mentor once said to me, that the sun is setting on that opportunity and there's a sunrise on a new one. So, for you, in as much as in that season of life, because you hadn't seen what was on something else, you the sun was setting, everything was happening, you tried everything you could, but for the same reason that now you can sit and you're really happy at JP Morgan and Chase, it it was meant to be that way. But there were challenges, there were things that you learned out of it. And now that's part of your story that you can turn around and share with other folks about that. And so I appreciate you sharing that. So I want to talk about, as we come to our last two questions here, is there anything in your journey to date, maybe it's in your career, in your life, that you would do differently? What is one thing you're like, I don't know, maybe that one I might have done something different, or maybe there isn't.
I honestly have to say there isn't, because
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard for me to say that because the
Yeah.
real answer is I would actually list out so many things. Me being a type A personality of, I would have done this differently. I'm overthinking. I would have done this differently. But as I've come to, be a bit more reflective and actually think over everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
so much more to experience. So I don't have all the answers, of course, but I've realized everything truly does happen for a reason, as cliche
Mm.
as it is. And every situation has somehow, some way led me to where I need to be. And in the moment, I think all the time, well, I would have done that. I should have done this differently. Or I can't see why this is going to be beneficial at some point. But I honestly
Right.
can't say I would have done anything differently, because I know that everything is happening as it should be. And so
Mm.
it's hard for me to really say, maybe I shouldn't have started at Deloitte. Like sometimes I say, for example, I wish I started at JP Morgan and had done a rotational program there and
Mm-hmm.
at that community, because I have some peers who started, doing internships there in a rotational the way I did at Deloitte. But then,
Mm-hmm.
well, I would have never met my Deloitte starting class and now friends, close friends, and those friends that you meet in a professional environment
Mm-hmm.
outside of school, right? Like how else
Yeah.
have I ever met them? And there's such
Right.
such an important part of my life today. So everything truly happens how it's meant to. And I'm really happy at the thought that that's kind of my new mentality over everything because I just
Mm.
accept something for what it is. And I'm like, well, maybe I can't see the point in it right now, but I know at some point this is going to be important in my story. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. That is an amazing mindset to have. It's so valuable and so important. And can we give a shout out to being able to find friends as an adult? That good friends at that, because adulting is challenging enough, but finding friends as an adult and or like different seasons of life, I know I've been through it where I have some of my college friends that are really wonderful. And I'm still fortunate to have my high school best friend still be my best friend all of these years later. And then in each season of life, when I started having kids, then I get my mom friends, and my kids are now making friends. And then I'm like, okay, how do I navigate with the moms? What does that look like? But my core set of friends, either they expand just a little bit, but that core set of trusted friends is so valuable, and making them after the easier season of being at school is that much more difficult. So I want to definitely give a highlight to that. And I appreciate your mindset as well. Just along the lines of everything does happen for a reason. I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, I don't believe in the word coincidence. I don't think that this thing happened just because. Like, it's literally a piece of whatever is working to make that next thing happen. And whether it's going to be a blessing or whether it's going to be a lesson, you don't know yet. But, every single piece is happening. So, Neidelyn, I know we're like, we could talk. We could absolutely talk forever, but we got to get to our last question here. I would love for you to share, what does wellness mean to you?
Yes. I'll start that off actually by touching back on what you just said about friendship, because I think
Hmm.
this is actually one of the pieces that wellness means to me, and that's community, because
Mm,
community truly is everything. And I think it's so important for us to prioritize our friendships. And to me, wellness at times is prioritizing my friendships, and it is being there for my friends, being a
hmm.
good friend, and making the time to hang out with them and to actually have just social time. Because like you said, friends are with you in all different parts of your life and your season. But one thing I find so unique about female friendships, and maybe this is like me being an only child and just
Yeah.
always wanting to have like a sister or whatever. um, I'm not at the stage yet where I'm, married or have kids, and maybe you can share more about this, but I feel
Hmm.
like friendships and female friendships, like eventually your husband's going to know you as your wife, and your
Yeah.
kids are going to know you as your mom, right? And like
Hmm.
your employer is going to know you as another employee, but your friends, I feel like, just know you for you. Like they just
Yes.
like you as a person. They've been with you through stages where you have just been yourself. You haven't been any specific role in their life or in anyone's life, right? So I find that so beautiful. And so I want to really treasure my female friendships and
Mm,
friendships in general, because I think it's a big piece of just happiness in life, like having a community. So with
mm,
that being said, I think wellness to me, it does mean self-care nights, having a face mask on and having some
hmm.
reading a book and doing my nails, or saying, you know what, I'm treating myself, buying this, getting a nice coffee that I love. Like I do think all of that is a component of my wellness, just
Hmm.
self-care. But honestly, something that I've been realizing even more, and has been a hard pill to swallow because it means you have to sometimes do things you don't love to do. And
Hmm.
that is sometimes wellness is actually making difficult decisions. And
Mm.
it actually means being disciplined in what you need to do. And
Yeah.
sometimes that means saving the money and actually putting the money aside, even though you want to spend it now. Sometimes that means if you need to study, actually taking the time out to study. So that actually means doing things you don't love to do because your future
Yes.
self is going to thank you. So that's been a big rewiring for me,
Mm.
wellness, and it is doing some things that are difficult and that you don't love to do.
I hear you. And thank you for mentioning that. I don't think we always talk about it. We don't always cover it in that respect, but it's so important to talk about it like that. And it is making difficult decisions, but knowing that the end result is better for you.
Right.
It's going to help you. Future Neidelyn is going to be happy that you saved that money, because when that next thing that you wanted to treat yourself on, or maybe you can make an extra payment on something, or whatever that's going to look like. So I appreciate that. And also, honestly, for me, I think, to speaking to female friends, those friends, when you are sometimes struggling I did an episode on identity last week. And so when you're struggling sometimes with your identity of who you are, and you're kind of swallowed in, for me, as mom and wife and all of these other things, remembering just who I am at the core, right? When I'm just Nicole, that's just who I am. Not Mrs. Gwanzura that day. I'm not Teddy's mom. I'm not, you know, um, it's just like, it's just beautiful to have those friends that are just like, okay. And especially my high school best friend, because she's known me since I was
Right.
15 years old. And she has loved me through every season of life, through our like high school foolishness to now being grown-ups and still living life. And now she's adopted my kids. She calls them her kids. She comes to visit them instead of me now, but that's the beauty of friendships that grow together, that you cherish, and it's that community. So, Neidelyn, I love talking to you. You are always such a joy, a genuine joy. I appreciate that you talked about your experiences, beyond just being the first in your family, being first generation, but talking about finances, talking about choosing yourself, and talking about the things that you've been through, where you are right now, speaking life into certain things, moving away from certain things. I think it's just really important that we're having this conversation. And I can't wait for everybody who's listening from this right now to be inspired by it, to take some notes from it. And if you're listening, I'd love for you to share in the comments, what's your favorite part of this episode? What are you resonating with Neidelyn's story? What pieces do you want to come for her to come back and tell you more about, right? On another episode. Share in the comments. What are your favorites? What do we need to dig into a little bit deeper? But thank you so much for being a guest. I'm so honored that you have continued to just treasure this working relationship that we have, and this like just beautiful communication that we have. And I'm grateful that it started with Forte, and it has no ceiling when it comes to where it goes next. So thank you, Neidelyn. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. And I would love to continue to talk forever with you, but I'm just so grateful that, we're in each other's lives, and all the opportunities that you've given me, and the guidance and the mentorship. And now you're spreading the wisdom to the entire world through your podcast. So I'm so grateful. And thank you for having me as a guest. It was so fun.
Of course, of course. Take care, everyone. Until next Wednesday, can't wait to see you. Be well. And yeah, just enjoy. If you're in a part of the world right now where the weather is warm, like it is on the East Coast, please soak it in. Sunshine is good for you. Take care.